The congregation here at Hollywood United Methodist is such a grand mix of everything, just because of this sense of welcoming. What I like to say that our congregation is what heaven's going to look like, because it's everyone.
A mystery disease known as the gay plague has become an epidemic unprecedented in the history of American medicine.
At that time, the messages across the country from various religious leaders was,
one line that really sticks out to me was when one of the participants or collaborators mentions, and I'm paraphrasing this, but I think they said that the cruelest thing to do is to say that a person can't have a relationship with God. And I think for me, that was like one of the standout moments. And I think I'll be thinking about that, and we'll probably remember it forever. This short honestly had me in tears at so many points. Because it was such a beautiful testament to the community and the service that they've created for each other and because of each other. I will also be thinking about the portions about the owl. They were really heartbreaking, and the parts honoring him were really moving. To see how this church has not only impacted the community, but also had a larger impact on the world, and seeing especially the archival of the mall was such a beautiful thing to witness, and to know that that actually happened at one point. And I just think that this is a really poignant doc.
We see people who define the odds and beat the stigmatisms. We are taught that gay people cannot be accepted into churches and that AIDS is a sin if they were to get it. But this film teaches us the opposite of that, that the people of the church can embrace everyone, even if it's risky, because haters are going to hate. I think it's just symbolic that they decided to put a red ribbon on their church. Red is not an entirely accepted color in churches. It's usually ties with the devil, but here it's used positively, and there's just so much change and impact that the church has done to the community and everyone, and it houses everyone. So there's so many stories to tell. It especially strikes an emotion in me to see the past pictures of people with AIDS, because that's someone's child's lover or brother. And even seeing the creation of the ribbon was a very heartfelt moment. It's a warm and special piece that shows that God loves all.
It really sort of shows you the backdrop of this church, this institution, and sort of I thought there was a very interesting examination of how our religious institutions and religious structures are so typically, specifically built against queer identity, homosexuality, in pretty much all of its forms. And I thought that sort of reclaiming their identity within their spirituality and within their religious identity, I thought was reflected in a very interesting way, with the older guard of the church having a lot of difficulty with the transitioning of the church and of the types of people that it was housing, and whether or not they wanted to have their front-facing identity be as a gay church. And I thought that there was a very sort of moving and an emotional appeal built around how much they were helping people, in particular with HIV, that I thought really reflected a lot of the religious ideals of the institution. And I thought the piece sort of showed an interesting reflection between the two dynamics in a way that I think most mainstream culture does not want to provide for. So I thought there was a very moving piece, because I thought everyone on screen was very committed to the mission statement of the church and of the community, and I think it all came through in their stories and sort of their ambitions for the type of community that was supposed to grow.
This talk just had such an amazing message about how God is love and how He does not judge. He doesn't, not love some people and love others. He loves everybody equally. And yeah, I just thought that was such an amazing message, and that so many people get wrong, and this one gets right. So yeah, I loved the speakers in this, and how everybody was touched in some way by a victim of AIDS, and how they brought their memory back in this documentary, and we got to focus on these individuals and their stories and how they touched so many people. So yeah, I loved that it focused on a few of the so many stories that unfortunately there were during these times in the 80s and 90s. It was a really, really moving documentary.
It tugged at your heart, but it was also fun to find out about the history of this church. Good pastoral opening statements of the early days of the 80s HIV epidemic right in Hollywood. The people interviewed were smart and articulate and interesting people. The photo documentation was nicely presented. That's always good in these historical pieces. You get a sense of what it was like previous to these decades. And I liked how they showed how the ribbons were installed and designed, and the quilting. Oh, fantastic. I remember seeing in the newspaper the quilts that went to Washington, D.C., and that's where they came from. That was new to me. I liked seeing how the ribbons went on the tower. And I just thought it was an excellent tribute to the members of that church who had died.
The message is a very important one to me, especially because one of the things I've noticed in life is just how much of a clash there is between religion and sexuality, which is very tragic because there are a lot of people who are religious but are shunned by their community because of who they love, especially in a religion where love is one of the biggest staples, and we're telling them that they're not allowed to believe in God because according to us, they chose to love the wrong person. I don't agree with that message, especially because, again, it's the fastest way to shun someone away from a religion, or if they're already a part of it, they lose their entire community. If we're to lead by example, I definitely believe that churches like this, where you're able to welcome anyone regardless of who they love, I feel like that's very powerful, very inclusive, and very strong. And I do wish more churches had this mindset.
I am so glad to hear of a religious community being open and supportive of the people that were unfortunate to catch AIDS on the early days of that epidemic. We have testimonials of people fighting for justice and putting those red ribbons up in their church as a testament of what's right and what is needed in times of crisis. It is beautifully moving. Every single person is so emotional with their testimonial and remembrance of people that unfortunately died due to the disease, and it's just an amazing example of humanity.